Well, thank you very much, everyone, for being here at the Natural Resources Agency headquarters in Sacramento, and for all of those who are joining across the state and beyond today for our Wildfire Task Force meeting. I'm Wade Crowfoot, and I'm our Natural Resources Secretary, and I have the honor of co-chairing this task force along with our partners at the U.S. Forest Service. Jason Kuiken is here today, of course, a tremendous leader in California for the U.S. Forest Service, and he's sitting in for Acting Regional Forester of the Pacific Southwest region, Jackie Buchanan. We had a chance to check in with Jackie, who we know as Jackie. I'll call her the Forester Buchanan, maybe, who is now Acting Forester of California, this Region 5, as she continues to be Regional Forester for the Northwest, which includes Alaska. So she was very kind to come down to California to check in and ensure that she's providing support to Jason and his colleagues, and we're grateful for your partnership. I want to thank everybody else on the executive committee. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourselves if you want to share any opening comments here today. Just a few housekeeping points for those who are joining in person. Exits are pretty clear, 2 in back, 2 in front. Bathroom is across the atrium to the right. And we will have a break, about a 10-minute break, estimated at about 10:40 a.m., just for your information. So we typically start out these meetings with some high-level thoughts or updates from our executive committee, and I'll kick things off. And I was reflecting this morning, walking my dog very early in the morning, about the agenda today. And what popped in my mind is the term Kaizen, which is a Japanese term that means continuous improvement. I learned that term in college in the early 90s when we were working. Oh, sorry. Got it. No worries. Excellent. I learned that term in college when we were studying Japanese automotive companies who were putting out incredible vehicles in Japan, and we learned about this ethos within organizations of never being satisfied, always focused on what we can do better. And I think that really sums up an ethos of this task force. We've made remarkable progress in recent years, that surging up all of the effort on projects to protect communities and landscapes well in advance of catastrophic fire, to restore the health of landscapes, to connect dots between people doing the work, to improve our coordination, to improve our transparency. It's pretty remarkable. And so today we will check in on that progress. At the same time, we know we have work to do amidst worsening conditions. As we commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Los Angeles fires next month that destroyed 13,000 homes, we recognize that there's a lot more work to get done. So today we'll spend time understanding the progress we've made in 2025, and even more importantly, what's ahead, and what targets are we setting for ourselves across California to improve wildfire safety and resilience and the health of our landscapes. So I'm really excited with this meeting, and big thanks to Patrick and the team for organizing what should be a great meeting. Just 2 quick updates I want to give that mark that progress. One is the remarkable work happening across state agencies streamlining wildfire safety projects. You may recall that in March, Governor Newsom issued an emergency order that gave myself and my colleague, our California Environmental Protection Agency Secretary, Yana Garcia, the authority to suspend environmental permitting requirements under certain conditions to get projects on the ground more quickly and cost effectively. Our team put their heads together and created a process whereby we have been able to suspend upwards of environmental permitting or process on 200 projects, tens of thousands of acres of projects getting on the landscape more quickly. Critically and importantly, not without environmental protections. Our process has created a required environmental protection plan, 13 pages of criteria that must be followed on these projects. So I'm really proud of the work that we've accomplished to get projects done more quickly and effectively while not sacrificing environmental protection. So that's one point of progress. The other is to make it easier to get beneficial fire on the land. We've talked over years about restoring beneficial fire, prescribed fire, cultural fire, managed fire back onto the landscape, and credit our colleagues in California's tribal communities for their patience and open-mindedness, teaching us that practice that's been put on the ground here in California since time immemorial. We know that the barriers have been too many for good fire to get on the ground as quickly and effectively as it needs to. So under that emergency order in March, Governor Newsom called on us to work with practitioners to understand what are those barriers and how can we get good fire projects done better. And that resulted in a workshop of practitioners in May, a set of recommendations to the governor. And then recently, last month, Governor Newsom issued an executive order that is focused on directing our state agencies to remove many of those barriers. And I was really pleased to join a webinar just this week where we reviewed all of the directives in this executive order. And I'm thankful that our task force will be providing an update on the progress on each of those directives next month. I'm really focused in 2026 on making tangible, measurable improvement to this process, given how important beneficial fire is to restore the health of landscapes and protect us against catastrophic wildfire. So let me turn now to my colleague, Jason. Jason, huge thanks once again for all your work and your colleagues at the U.S. Forest Service. It's been quite a tumultuous 2025, and you guys are staying focused and making remarkable progress. So thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me here today. And so again, I'm Jason Kuiken. I'm back as Forest Supervisor on the Stanislaus National Forest after about 8 months as Acting Regional Forester here in California. And you know, this conversation that we're having today, in the midst of fog outside, where it's cool, get a little bit of a chill coming in here this morning. But I'll tell you, I come from Sonora right now, and it's going to be about 70 degrees in Sonora. All the mountain passes are open right now, and so this work really matters. This work, these relationships, we're figuring out with Natural Resources Agency, with CAL FIRE, with our county partners, with other state agencies on how do we accelerate, how do we learn from what we've done in the past and apply that on every national forest and all those private lands and state lands in between, because that's how we're going to make a difference. And you know, and that sense of what do we need to do is in the suppression side, right? We had 60 days of red flag warnings between June and September of this year, had record lightning strikes, and that coordination with CAL FIRE, that coordination with local resources and federal resources, we had almost a 97% success rate. And so let's keep doing that work because a lot of that was tied to fuels projects throughout the state. And a lot was also tied to our aviation resources. We have a number of new aircraft on contract within the state and nationally that has helped us be successful on initial attack and extended attack. And so that's all helpful. But this fuels conversation, how do we apply projects again across boundaries at scale, because scale really matters. In 25, the Forest Service completed 227,000 acres of hazardous fuels reduction projects. That was in the midst of a lot of change and other things happening, and so that was good. Going to that beneficial fire, about 21,000 acres was in wildfire acres that met our fuels goals. That's a good thing. More than that, we had 50,000 acres accomplished with our local and state partners. That's county agreements, that's agreements with CAL FIRE and other state agencies. And we're going to keep on that pathway and increase that in 26 and beyond. That is the wave of the future. And so let's keep at it. And then since October 1st, just in the last couple months, we have accomplished over 14,000 acres of fuels mitigation. And that means completed work that you could go to and see a change in that landscape. And that's just this year. That's all tied to a national active management strategy, and that was released in May. We have a regional one that's in draft form. That is, how do we increase our timber sales? How do we increase our fuels reduction? And then how do we increase our ability to apply prescribed fire in a safe and effective manner? And so we have national and regional teams working on that. We're organized right now with Oregon, Washington, and Alaska so that we can learn those things that others are learning. We don't need to reinvent wheels. We need to find those wheels that are working and change the spokes to make it work with our local constituents. And so those are all good things. Something else to mention is we have a new agreement with Sierra Pacific Industries to treat over 29,000 acres of fuel breaks across 7 national forests. And that work was in high gear this year. Over 2,000 acres are already completed on the El Dorado, Lassen, Plumas, Shasta Trinity, on Stanislaus as well, and the Tahoe. And I've been to several of those projects. They look good, and that's another opportunity that we're going to continue looking at into the future. And we signed I got to sign the 3 Good Neighbor Authority agreements with CAL FIRE. We're going to make some amendments here soon, I hope, and just keep on that, because that's providing opportunity to have any number of fuels reduction and even planning through CAL FIRE. And so capacity has always been a conversation, and we're looking at different ways that we can organize in order to be effective, not just in Forest Service, but in all of our federal partners, and we'll continue working on training and opportunities with the state so that we can have the right workforce in the right place at the right time. And so, I'm appreciative of being here today. All of those strategies are tied to a couple things in my mind. One is relationship and partnership. Another is recognizing what's working and applying that elsewhere. And really, it's about continual improvement, engaging the public, and knowing that we need to do things not just on federal lands, not just on state lands, not just on private lands, but all of them together. And when you can crack that nut and have that work occur in parallel on all ownerships in an area, you have more effective fuels treatments. And so let's keep doing that together. It takes all of us. And so glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversations today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jason. And it's a point worth repeating of just how close the partnership is on the ground between the Forest Service and CAL FIRE and so many of our agencies. A lot of attention on headlines, between our governments. But the fact is that the work on the ground is actually, I would say, has never been more coordinated in my 7 years in this role than it is now. So huge thanks for that continued partnership. Let's turn to other members of our executive committee for updates.
Well, good morning, Secretary. Good morning, all. On behalf of the record, State Fire Marshal, and it is great to be with you all this morning. Really, as we reflect back on 2025, the fire year really posed some of the most challenging fire conditions that we have experienced in many years. Yet it really underscored for us, and I think for all of us in this room, more clearly than ever, the importance of resilience, preparation, and coordinated response. As we conclude our fire year here in 2025, CAL FIRE, our federal and our local partners, responded to nearly 8,000 wildfires all across the state, consuming just over 1.5 million acres of California's landscape. And those fires ranged in scale from small, quickly contained incidents to large, complex events, including the destructive LA fires that you mentioned, Secretary. Now, in the metric of acres burned, this year is really nearly half of what our 5-year average has been. And so we really saw less acres burned overall. But as we know from the LA fires, these 2 urban conflagrations really resulted in the destruction of 16,251 homes being damaged or destroyed. 16,000 being destroyed, another 2,047 being damaged. Those fires took the lives of 31 people. And so, again, how we measure the fire year may be different each year, but we would absolutely consider this based on the destruction and the loss, a very bad year overall. Yet, despite the intensity of those fires and overall this fire year, what we're proud of at CAL FIRE and with our partners are the significant strides made in many of the areas, Secretary, that you've mentioned. But it's really important to note for us that despite this high level of activity and this large commitment time that we had in LA the beginning of the year, we still were able to increase our fuel reduction efforts through the fiscal year, surpassing our goal by 80%, which include a doubling for us of our prescribed fire acres. And so for us, that is a point of pride that even with all of these fires, our crews can still remain focused with the support of course, our federal, local, tribal, and grant partners at getting good work done. This past year, as discussed here at this task force, we launched our fuels treatment effectiveness reporting dashboard, really going to expand the public transparency from the standard acres treated. That is a good work metric for us, but just showing really a more new interactive evaluation of how these fuel reduction projects that we're doing, how they stood against the impact from wildfires. And so if you have not gone to that website, I would encourage you, because again, it really goes to demonstrate how it really helped us in the face of fire. But then lastly, on the prevention side and the preparedness side, we've continued our aggressive outreach for defensible space, home hardening, community scale resiliency, alongside some very ambitious investments. In fact, very proud that later today we will be announcing releasing $63 million in local fire prevention projects to award 84 projects to continue this momentum into the new year. And then just behind it, we will continue as a department to announce solicitation opportunities for forest health and fire prevention programs funded by the Climate Bond. But it's really important that I don't want to make any mistake of the progress. 2025 has to be a wake-up call for us, that the scale, the unpredictability of the fire years, the mega fires that we are experiencing in remote forests, the destructive conflagrations in our urban areas, these demonstrate that this fire season that once was is increasingly a year-round reality. And so I echo the supervisor's comments. I love seeing the fog, but just outside that fog line, we should have a lot more snow, and it should not be as hot as we are experiencing. And so the fog will burn off, and what January brings in 2026 is unknown. But as we move forward, we at CAL FIRE will continue to redouble our efforts in expanding fuel reduction treatments, ramping up community hardening, investing in early detection, rapid response capability, and most importantly for this group, deepening our collaboration and partnership with our state, our tribal, our local, and all of our community stakeholders, because together, that's where we get really the best benefit for California. So I know this task force shares our commitment in building a safer, more fire-resilient California, and this year has made it clear that this work is urgent. So thank you, Secretary, and again, thank you all.
Yeah, big thanks, Daniel. And CAL FIRE gets so much attention for the incredible fire response that you and over 10,000 CAL FIRE employees lead. But not enough people know about this sea change and this remarkable work that you all are doing before wildfires ever come. So thank you and kudos for exceeding those fuel reduction goals. Thank you for Chief Tyler's leadership, leaning into beneficial fire, and big thanks to unit chiefs across the state for expanding the use of beneficial fire to protect communities and landscapes. And then your leadership in the Office of the State Fire Marshal protecting communities from within, and the work that you're doing, continuing to doing on defensible space and establishing Zone 0 to protect homes against these urban conflagrations is really, really important. So thank you, and here's to more of that. Other committee members? Supervisor?
Sure. Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. I had a couple things. I wanted to first say a big thank you to Patrick. Patrick came and spoke to a county conference recently and gave county supervisors an update on all the great work that's happening here. And I think a lot of us in this room are watching things happen day after day. And it was great to see how many light bulbs went on for people when Patrick went over the set of slides he had about the directives and all the work that's happening here. So thank you for that. And then I wanted to share a brief discussion that came up at our RCRC meeting yesterday. A lot of very rural counties are struggling with their volunteer fire departments, how to engage volunteers, how to keep volunteers, how to meet the increasingly high certification requirements. And so I'm looking forward to a conversation about that. But I love what you just shared. Pointing out the sea change that has happened at CAL FIRE, that I'm not just focused on response, but also prevention. And I think there's a great model there for volunteer fire departments too, to think about how they can support, because people volunteer because they want to help protect their community. And we now know that a great way to protect your community is get engaged in prevention work. So, and I think it fits right into the Kaizen that you started out with, right? Like, how do we expand who can be a partner here? Because that's been a real success of this committee and the task force thus far, is to have that expansive view of partnership. So let's keep it going. Thanks.
Yeah, huge thanks, Supervisor, both for your leadership as a elected county supervisor in Napa and also your representation of rural counties on this task force. We have another local elected official, Supervisor McCauley, who represents the California State Association of Counties. So we really benefit from the perspective of two local officials. Let me turn it over to you, Supervisor McCauley.
Yeah, thanks, Wade. Again, Madera County Supervisor Bobby McCauley here. I also want to recognize Jason for coming in, joining us at CSAC. Thank you, Jason. Even if you were a little long-winded, it's quite all right. We appreciate all the information you have to share. I think those kind of conversations, though, are going to be imperative, because it's true. We did have some great success, a lot of progress over 2025. But when we look forward to 2026, I think it's imperative that we stay front and center on the conversation. So we've had a lot of conversations, both Ann and I, about how we can do that. We've talked with Patrick about what we're calling our roadshow. So we're very excited to be getting out to the communities over the next year, talking with our state legislators to make sure they understand what the solutions are that we're building here within the task force. Because, as we all know, you don't know what you don't know, right? So we need to get down to Ventura. We need to get down to LA. We need to help make sure that those folks there in the legislature understand the great work that is going on here, the great work that you folks are doing on the ground. So that way we can continue this great momentum. So thank you for being here. Excited for the agenda. I think we've got a lot of great stuff on it. So appreciate it.
Big thanks to you. I want to just recognize that we have three other executive committees. We have Don Hankins, who leads the Indigenous Stewardship Network. And why don't I turn to you, Don?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Always a pleasure to be here. And there's a couple things to update. I think there's some slides that are going to come up. Maybe Nick, yeah, there we go. So I wanted to give a little update in terms of what tribal communities are engaged in currently. And since the last task force meeting, we had talked about some opportunities that were happening around some indigenous fire planning that was happening at state parks. And so I wanted to report out that gathering in terms of fire planning at the Cascade Ranch State Park took place the week after our last task force meeting. We had 25 people that attended that, co-hosted with the Alma Mutsun Tribal Band and their land stewards. And the map that you see there represents that area where we were looking at different units of where burning might take place for different cultural values. But I want to point out that if not for the imagery, the actual landscape there burned on the kind of east side of that image in the CZU complex. And so this is planning ultimately to bring fire back into a landscape and make it more resilient. The other thing, we talk a lot about metrics here. We often hear about the acres and that sort of thing. And I think that sometimes we lose the human benefits in what we're really trying to work for. And so earlier this week, I put out a very last minute call to some of our tribal partners within the state and asked, who's put on training since September and how many people have come through those. And the response I got back, and this is not comprehensive, but we had over 540 people participating in various tribally led TREX events and other workshops that were taking place around the state. So 540 additional people out there to help us with these partnerships. And I think that's a really tremendous thing to be able to share out. The next thing that I want to point out is that with our support from the Regional Fire Force Capacity Grant Program, the Indigenous Stewardship Network is rolling out and has a webinar this afternoon on the Rekindling Fire and Culture grants. So if anybody's interested, you can scan the QR code there to learn more about it. But we will be providing some funding to support more of these kinds of workshops going forward. The other thing I kind of want to wrap up with is just recognizing that there's a lot of work, obviously, that the state is doing with, obviously, our discussion today is mostly around the action plan. We've got the fifth climate assessment report that's also being developed along with others. And as coordinating lead author for the fifth climate assessment report for tribal indigenous communities, I am actively working with our group to try to synthesize between these two draft plans to make sure that they're flowing together, which is a bit challenging, but it's coming together. And so I'm excited about that. And lastly, what I wanted to mention is that we've had just really great turnout from state and other partners at various workshops. Last week, I was in New Orleans for the Association for Fire Ecology Conference, and I was really pleased to see so many representatives from the state and our local tribes coming together and learning together, because the conversations that take place at those events have been really tremendous. So I just want to extend a thanks to the state for sending some of our CAL FIRE folks there. So thank you.
Many thanks, Don. And big thanks to our two state agencies who are partners in this work, the Governor's Office of Land Use and Climate Innovations and our California Environmental Protection Agency. And we welcome Miranda Flores, the Deputy Director at the Land Use and Climate Innovations Office, to share any thoughts.
Yeah, thanks so much. Good morning, everyone. As Wade said, Miranda Flores, Chief Deputy Director at the Governor's Office of Land Use Planning and Climate Innovation. And yeah, we're really pleased. Oh, I'm here on behalf of Sam Sapa. And we're really pleased that some of our wildfire resilience projects supported about 500 acres treated this year. These projects were not only reducing wildfire risk, but also supporting kind of workforce development and economic opportunities and underserved communities. And as we move forward, we support efforts to capture how treatments bring multiple benefits to diverse communities and build long-term resilience. And as a part of that, we recently launched our Vulnerable Communities platform, which really talks about the social implications of when we do this work and kind of overlaying them with not only just physical comprehension, but also what this looks like, whether we have, excess renters or elderly population, that we just think is really important when we come to this work and the type of communities that we're serving. So I'm really excited for the conversation today. Thanks so much for inviting us, and happy to be here. Have a good.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And over to Katie from Cal EPA.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Katie Landau, Special Advisor to the Deputy Secretary for Water Policy at Cal EPA, and happy to be here on behalf of Secretary Yana Garcia. So really just sort of sticking with the theme of the looking back, looking forward. Much of where we've been with Cal EPA over the last several months is working on the secretarial suspensions that Wade mentioned. And, we're at nearly 200 projects approved so far this year since that was rolled out mid-April. And I think probably more importantly, just over half of those projects are already underway or have already been completed by, folks on the ground doing the work for the vegetation management activities or those prescribed fires. So really wonderful progress made so far. And then obviously, as we're moving into 2026, we will just be working with our partners at CNRA and within CARB and CAL FIRE, making progress on several of the actions that were outlined in the Governor's Beneficial Fire Executive Order that went out at the end of October. And, really including looking at expediting beneficial fire projects at a long-term framework, and then strengthening the alignment between CARB and with the air quality entities. So much more action to be taken there. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get underway with a report from our task force director, Patrick Wright. We always want to start with understanding the work that happens in between these task force meetings. Those who participate regularly understand that we have quarterly meetings. Every other meeting is out in a region of California, which is really the best meetings to hear from local leaders. And then every other meeting we have here in Sacramento. This is very much of a working task force. So a lot of work happens in between these meetings. And I'll invite Patrick to take a little time to help us understand what happened. And I'll note that Our task force earlier this year identified 25 actions to complete in 2025. And candidly, I said to Patrick, are you crazy? 25 actions to get done? And I said, no pressure at the time, but you're going to give us an update on whether or not that was too ambitious.